समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The vote Chori debate ahead of the Bihar election is heating up. The leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, has likened it to a flame that is spreading as a campaign issue through the length and breadth of Bihar. But the Election Commission is also hitting back. It is accusing Rahul Gandhi of ducking responsibility by not submitting his allegations in the form of an affidavit. It is said that Mr. Gandhi must either submit the proof or a written affidavit or apologize. In the meantime, an added dimension to this entire controversy has become the BJP targeting Rahul Gandhi after CSDS's psephologist, Professor Sanjay Kumar, deleted 3 or 4 of his tweets on Maharashtra, conceding an inadvertent error. On the program today, in a moment from now, we'll be speaking to Yogendra Yadav to understand where this entire controversy might be headed. I'm Barkha, you're with the Mojo Story. We are perhaps seeing an unprecedentedly strident collision between Chief Election Commissioner of India and Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition. The CEC, in a weekend press conference, targeted Mr. Gandhi without naming him and said that Mr. Gandhi must submit proof of his allegations in written affidavit form or apologize. His tone was very, very assertive. Some might even say aggressive. Rahul Gandhi is not backing down either. Mr. Gandhi has continued to raise vote Chori allegations as a key component of his Bihar campaign. One that he now says that even children on the streets of Bihar are talking about. Interestingly, in the interim, the BJP seemed to wade into the debate with their own voter fraud allegations. But now they are talking about Sanjay Kumar, professor with CSDS, who released some data on Maharashtra on his X or Twitter handle and later took it back, saying that his data team had made an error. His funders have now warned him. There are FIRs against him. And the BJP says that it is Sanjay Kumar's faulty data that enabled Rahul Gandhi's campaign. The Congress is actually hit back saying that Rahul Gandhi made his allegations well before Sanjay Kumar released any of his specific data on Maharashtra. In the midst of all of this, the Supreme Court is, of course, at the heart of what might happen next. And among the petitioners in the Supreme Court is our newsmaker today, Yogendra Yadav, who actually appeared in the court. There you can see him in that image there, in the form of petitioner and made his own arguments. Joining me now is Yogendra Yadav. Let's bring him up on our screen. There he is. Yogendra ji, namaskar. Thank you. Quite an interesting role there to appear in court. And did you basically argue your own case, and how did you prepare for it?
That was very kind of the court to allow me to speak. And no, you see, Barkha, basically the arguments are made by the lawyers who are conversant with the law, who know what exactly to say and how to present it. But because this particular case involves some facts of turnout, of voter list, and it required a comparative view of the world. Therefore, I ventured to make a submission. And I'm so happy that Prashant Bhushan and Shadan Parasat encouraged me and said, no, this bit you can say. Law we will take care, Constitution will speak about, but this is technical, factual stuff. Why don't you speak about it? And the court was gracious enough to allow me to speak. So it's not that I thought lawyers should not do it and I do it, nothing of that kind. It was actually on the advice of and encouragement of lawyers that I made that little technical submission. And I'm grateful the court appreciated that.
Now, I want to come to one of your more recent columns. And in that column, you explain why you actually back Rahul Gandhi on his vote chori charge, but do not back the Election Commission's revision of rules that is taking place in Bihar. And you say that having problems with the voter rolls does not mean that you are therefore obliged to back the SIR exercise, which is the intensive revision of rules that is taking place. Or आपका कहना है that in this case the medicine is almost worse than the disease. That is what you argue in your column, which we see on the screen. Can you explain why? Because logical बात तो यही होगी योगेंद्र जी कि ठीक है रोल्स में गलतियां मिली हैं, कहीं पे डुप्लीकेट नाम है, कहीं पे डिलीशन है, कहीं पे घर का नंबर मैच नहीं हो रहा, whatever be the errors, the election commission would argue and has argued that is why we say SIR होना चाहिए. आप कहते हैं one doesn't flow from the other. Explain why.
And you would recall, Barkha, that in my piece I recall Yes Minister. That's a BBC serial. And the serial has this lovely exchange, which has now become iconic, and it has been turned into a meme, and it has now a name for itself. And the argument is simply this. Someone says, something needs to be done. The second person says, here is something. And the first person says, all right, then we must do it. This is a form of reasoning which now has a technical name to it. It is called politician syllogism. I'll not get into the logic part of it. But you see, what is silly about this reasoning is this. When someone says, yes, something should be done, and everyone agrees something should be done, the second person says, here is something. Then the third person should be asking a very elementary question. Is this something the same as something that was required? That is the logical error here. And it is so ridiculous. Now, in the case of the vote chori and everything else, what is the relevant point is this. Yes, there is a problem with the voters list. Indeed. And it is even before Rahul Gandhi said anything about it. For 20 years, as an election researcher, I've known that there are serious problems with India's voters list, especially in the urban areas. The voters lists are very seriously defective. Yes, something needs to be done. Is the established practice of election commission all right? No, it's not been all right. I was arguing with election commission earlier as well. Please improve your practices. These are not very good. Even if there is no systematic fraud, there is a problem with the way voters lists are compiled. What about annual revision? Yes, annual revision is useful, but it's not foolproof. So yes, something more than a normal annual revision is called for. What is required is going house to house. Now, someone would jump and say, all right, Mr. Yogendra Yadav is actually supporting the argument for special intensive revision. No, sir. And that's the elementary mistake you are making. Yes, there is a disease. Yes, medicine is required. But please tell me, show me your medicine and match it to the problem. What is called SIR is actually not the medicine which is required. What is required is a very simple thing for which we need no new law, we need no new practices. Election Commission had something which it used to call intensive revision. And what was intensive revision? Intensive revision meant that you would take the voters list in your hand, but go house to house and physically verify every single person. And if the person is absent, you got some documents, you satisfied yourself. That was intensive revision. That's a very good practice. Every 3 or 4 years, it should be done. If Election Commission wants to do it today in the rest of the country, I would be their ambassador in case they need any. I would be their advocate. I would support it. But that's not what SIR is. And most people do not understand it. For 2 months, I've been crying on this issue. And I'm afraid I've not been able to convince most people about this very simple thing. SIR is a house-to-house visit, yes, but it does 3 things which are unprecedented, unnecessary, illegal, and leading to disenfranchisement. Number 1, the BLO or the Election Commission doesn't go house to house with an existing list. They have junked the list and they want to create de novo a new list. The problem in creating a de novo list is that while you eliminate some past errors, you insert many new errors. Number 2, more dangerous, the Election Commission has shifted the onus of being on voters list to the voter themselves. This has never happened in the history of India. The CEC was not telling the truth when he said in 2003 we got enumeration forms. No, sir. I happen to know the history of Election Commission of India. Never has Election Commission ever asked every single voter to fill a form, and in case you don't fill the form, you are off the voters list. No, this is changing the nature of India's electoral system from state initiated registration to self initiated registration, which globally has the effect of knocking down 20% people from the bottom of the list, outside the list. This is exactly what happens in the US. And the third thing that SIR does, which is unprecedented and unconstitutional, is that it has overturned the presumption of citizenship. If I'm a BLO and I come to Barkha's house in Delhi, I used to presume that she's an Indian citizen, unless someone came and told me, no, she's taken up a US citizenship, and here is my complaint. Then I would say, Barkhaji, please give me the following documents. Now that's completely overturned. I come to Barkha's home and I say, I don't know whether you're an Indian or not. Please give me papers to prove. Barkha may be able to prove it because she would have a passport. But when they go to a Malati Devi in Bihar at the bank of Kosi River, which has changed its course, and poor Malati has changed her house thrice in the last 3 years after every single flood, and ask her to produce a document for Indian citizenship, this is a cruel joke. This is actually a way to disenfranchise her. These are the three things which make SIR a very different from the medicine which was required. And in this instance, I say a medicine which is worse than the disease itself.
Now, the Chief Election Commissioner led a press conference on the weekend, and without right now getting into the tone and tenor and his personal disagreement with Rahul Gandhi, on a couple of points, he gave explanations. For example, on House Zero. On House Zero, he said that this is actually not a mistake. It is used for unnumbered addresses. He also spoke about duplicate names, and he said duplicate names doesn't mean multiple voting. Let's start with House Zero. I will confess that when I saw House 0, even I thought, ये क्या ये तो कोई अजीब चीज है. What does it mean? But the EC has explained that it is in fact perfectly legitimate. I want you to tell me if you were convinced with any of these explanations. Do you accept that some of the points raised by people like yourself may have been misplaced? Do you believe that?
Barkha, I never made the point about House Zero at all because I happen to know
I
the
think
Election Commission's protocols.
I think that's us journalists who made that mistake.
Because I know the protocols of Election Commission. Election Commission's protocols, its rules and regulations are very elaborate, are extremely careful. And if the Election Commission were to follow its own protocols, things would not be so bad. So yes, I'm very happy that we are not discussing the tone and tenor of the press conference, because the less said, the better. It was shameful not to put too fine a point on it. And I'm glad you are saying he has offered some explanations, because as you know, there were at least 10 pointed questions in that press conference, which the EC simply refused to answer. We'll get to that. But coming to these, the one explanation about zero voter. So in some cases, it was pointed out that there is a house which is given a zero number and the house has so many voters. Now, to everyone, it looks odd, but Election Commission is correct to say, actually, they have a proper protocol which says that if there is someone whose house you cannot track, someone who sleeps on the pavement, someone who sleeps outside a temple, say it House Zero and give them that number. However, it was a very poor explanation for what was being discussed, because in Bihar, the problem is not with House Zero. I can tell you a figure. House number 6 in one constituency that I saw, Barachatti constituency, which is in Gaya, which has that's a village in the constituency Gaya. All the 924 voters live in one house, and that is house number 6. It's not zero. So house number 0 can be explained if that is the way it has been used. There is a provision for that, but there's no provision for house number 17 having 232 names. No provision for house number 6 having the entire voter booth in it. No provision for another house to have 300 voters. How would he explain that? So he has explained a very tiny slice of the problem. The answer would have been, yes, we make mistakes. Yes, there are errors. Yes, these are human errors. This may not be a conspiracy. I agree with that. But in which case, please do not make those loud claims about SIR having maintained purity of electoral rolls. You have to demonstrate that your rolls are better than what they used to be earlier. And these glaring mistakes are pointing in your face. The other explanation that you spoke about, what was that?
The duplicate names.
The duplicate now. Now, of course, that's a simple logical thing. A person being in three places in voters' lists does not necessarily mean that the person would have voted in three places.
Yeah.
At the same time, it does not necessarily mean that he did not vote in three places. So who has the evidence? Can Rahul Gandhi produce that evidence? No, sir. The only person who can produce that evidence is the chief election commissioner, because he's sitting on a data which Rahul Gandhi does not and cannot have access to. He can have access to. Why does he not produce this data to show that this person, instead of giving me a logical possibility against which I can give exactly the opposite logical possibility, why does he not inquire? My simple question about all this, Barkha, is that look, if a politician stands on rooftop and simply starts calling, saying, Chori ho gaya, ye cover, whatever, there's nothing you can do about it. Just keep quiet and let it happen. But if a political leader gives you evidence of about 1 lakh papers obtained from you through right to information, the least you owe to the country is to order an inquiry. What is this nonsensical argument about give me an affidavit and then I'll do an inquiry? Number one, well, all right, in which case all the cases that you are launching, the day you go to Yogendra Yadav's profile and say fake data, the day you threaten Sanjay Kumar with FIRs, did you ask him to give an affidavit and then you take an action? If Rahul Gandhi is lying, what prevents you from starting an action? If you can take an action against Sanjay Kumar, surely you can take an action against Rahul Gandhi. And the second very simple question that came up in the press conference, Barkha, is, sir, what happened to those who did give an affidavit? You're saying as if once you give an affidavit, then everything starts. Samajwadi Party gave 18,000 affidavits. They're waiving those affidavits. What happened to that, sir? And what kind of nonsensical reasoning is that?
You mentioned Sanjay Kumar and CSDS, and I will come to that in just a moment. You said the tone and tenor of the CEC's press conference was shameful. I want to ask you whether you remember a time when there has been this sort of breakdown between the Election Commission as a body and the main opposition or parties or the leader of the opposition. Both are constitutional entities, the LOP and the EC. And I think people are worried that in our country, the one thing that always worked was you conceded defeat with grace. We have never had a major argument about an election result in many years that I can remember. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, booth capturing ke upar jhagda hota tha. Now, I take your point about the tone of the CEC. Would you also advise Rahul Gandhi to use a quieter tone? Because his most recent comment spoke about a fire kind of running through Bihar and, a 4-year-old child now knowing what vote chori is. Or would you make the argument that a politician and an election commission are two different entities and are expected to talk differently?
No, Barkha, this should apply to everyone, to politician, to election commissioner, to media persons, everyone. We are discussing something very sacrosanct in our democratic system, something that we could take pride in, and therefore something that should not be very loosely, you should not have a loose talk about it. That applies to everyone. Then since you asked me about a time when I may have observed something similar, Barkha, you would remember that. I just need to remind you. You remember JM Lingdo? You remember 2002 Gujarat elections? You remember what Narendra Modi said then? You remember those press conferences, just for the benefit of the viewers. In 2002, when JM Lingdo simply said, I will not hold a Gujarat election within 15 days of the riots or 20 days of the riots. He said, let situation calm down. We'll hold the election after that. Of course, Mr. Modi was enraged And in meeting after meeting, Barkha, you would remember and testify. What did he say? James Michael Lingdo. Just to remind to every viewer that he's a Christian. And then there were allegations about his getting instructions from Rome. You remember all that, Barkha? So I think it's important for people like us to remind the younger persons. And you would also remember in 2013, when Mr. Modi was a prime ministerial candidate and therefore the leader of opposition, accusing the election commission of being partisan, of saying that in a tweet, of saying that in public rallies. So this is not for the first time. You would also remember Mamata Banerjee after she lost election in 2006, saying she went on a dharna accusing election commission of a fraud. So all kinds of things have been said. What has not happened in this country is election commission, a constitutional authority, stooping as low as Mr. Gyanesh Kumar has today. That was not the press conference of a constitutional authority. Barkha, do you remember Mr. Lingdo host holding a press conference and asking Mr. Modi for an affidavit, threatening him with action and saying, Desh se maafi mango? Did you hear any of these filmy nautanki from any chief election commissioner? What is extraordinary in the situation today is, number one, it is not merely one more allegation of one more leader who's lost election. Someone comes up with 1 lakh documents and says, please hold an inquiry. And you are saying, affidavit do nahi to desh se maafi mango. Barkha, you were in charge of newsrooms. If someone brought to you someone in a blank envelope, taped, sealed blank envelope without any signature, gave you an information and said one of your reporters is lying, one of your reporters involved in corruption, what would you say? Affidavit do, tab main jaanch karungi. Batao, nahi to desh se maafi mango. Or would you quietly go back and say, no, let me find out what's wrong there? If election commission is truly interested in the sanctity of the process, if election commission is truly interested in the purity of the voters list as it should be, even if not Rahul Gandhi, if I happen to raise it on a television show, or if an unknown Indian were to supply them with these papers through a blank mail, they should be looking at it. Why should they wait for it? And all that someone is asking for is a judicious inquiry. The CEC made utterly untenable argument. He said, how can I give notice to 1 lakh, 1.5 lakh people? No, sir, don't be so childish. No one was asking you to do that. If you do an inquiry of these 1 lakh names, you discover that in, say, 10,000 cases, Rahul Gandhi was wrong. All right, tick it off. Then in another 15, 20,000 cases, you realize that no, my officer had made a mistake. Call the officer, haul him up. In another 20,000 cases, you might discover that a third party was playing dirty. Investigate, hold that party accountable. And if you discover in 5 or 10,000 cases that the electors themselves were playing prank with the election commission and deliberately putting their names in more than one places, well, issue notice to them. Who asked you to begin by issuing notices? Only a clean team. And then who prevents the election commission from inviting a reputed former judge, not just any former judge? And there are many former judges in this country who have a reputation, who everyone knows, whose findings cannot be challenged. If election commission really wanted to combat Rahul Gandhi, the combat from an election institution like this would have been to say, all right, अब देखिए इस जज को हमने बना दिया, अब तुम इनके ऊपर भी उंगली उठाओगे, हम इनसे जांच करवाएंगे, दूध का दूध पानी का पानी करवाएंगे. Why doesn't the election commission do that?
I want to ask you, as a critic of this government, how did you respond to the BJP, at least briefly, also embracing or supporting the allegation that there is voter fraud? The only difference is the constituencies that they listed happen to be held by the opposition. They listed Raebareli as one of them. And their state level leaders in Karnataka, for example, which is where Rahul Gandhi's initial press briefing was rooted in or contextualized in, they say कि ये होता है, लेकिन ये हर सीट में होता है. ये कोई नहीं कह सकता that this is only happening, with voters of the opposition. This is something that happens in other seats as well. What did you make of Anurag Thakur's press conference?
Number one, if Rahul Gandhi is entitled to pointing out the errors in voters list, So is Anurag Thakur, is absolutely entitled to talking about it, just as the Election Commission should take note of what Rahul Gandhi says. And if there's some prima facie credibility, it should order an inquiry. Similarly, if Anurag Thakur claims have any prima facie credibility, Election Commission must order an inquiry in that as well. Just as the Election Commission has not asked Anurag Thakur for any affidavit, at least to my knowledge, till an hour ago, Election Commission should not ask Rahul Gandhi for any affidavit. You remember that question was asked at least thrice in that press conference. What was the answer? God knows. I don't know the answer. There's no answer to that. And to the point that ये सब जगह होता है, ऐसा ही होता है. Well, I would like Election Commission to say it. Let the Election Commission say सब जगह होता है, ऐसा ही होता है. Yes, but realistically speaking, I would tell you, सब जगह होता है in very small quantity. As I said, voters lists are defective in this country. We are very high on the coverage score, or there are three different ways of judging a voters list quality. One is completeness. On completeness, India is very good. We are among the best in the world. Our completeness level is about 99%. But accuracy has always been a problem in our country in the voters list. Election Commission has not so far come up with very good method. But then there are two kinds of inaccuracies. One is routine inaccuracy, which politicians all talk about. The second is systematic fraud. 1 lakh voters out of 6 lakhs in that constituency. ये होता नहीं है. 6 लाख में से आपके 10-15 हजार ऊपर नीचे हैं, प्रॉब्लम्स है, होता है. 6 लाख में से 1 लाख जिसका एविडेंस आ गया हो, ये नहीं होता है, because that is enough to completely flip the elections. Remember, we're speaking of 1/6 of the total voters. Now, 1/6 of the voters, something like 15 to 16% votes, can completely flip any election any which way. That would render elections completely meaningless. ये नहीं होता था, ये नहीं होता है, ये नहीं होना चाहिए.
I want to, before I ask you for what an alternative way ahead, I want you to talk about what's happening with Professor Sanjay Kumar of the CSDS. And in this context, the BJP has, of course, gone hammer and tong for him. But you have also been mentioned in some of those comments because of your old association with CSDS. But first, let's talk about what happened, right? What we know is that Sanjay Kumar released some information on his Twitter handle, and he spoke about additions as high as 47% and 43% in 2 assembly constituencies, comparing Lok Sabha and assembly data. And he also spoke about deletions in 2 seats, which were also quite high. And then he said, my team made a mistake. I apologize. Since then, there have been 2 FIRs registered against him. His funders in the government have basically all but threatened to withdraw funding. And the BJP has accused the Congress and him of being in cahoots. Oddly, several Congress people have accused him of being in cahoots with the BJP. If you look at what's happening in Twitter, the commentary is quite odd and confusing. I want you to talk about what happened with Sanjay Kumar and what is happening subsequently.
Barkha, it's only fair that I should begin by making a conflict of interest statement, because I was with the CSDS, and because BJP trolls have invoked that Yogendra Yadav wala CSDS. I just want to tell the basic facts that the moment I entered politics, I stepped out of CSDS. In 2013, I went on long leave, which is, leave without pay, which I was entitled to, any academic is entitled to. And after 3 years of leave without pay in 2016, when we were forming the party, Swaraj India, I formally resigned. In the last 13 years, I don't think I've been to CSDS even 10 times. And more importantly, Barkha, for those who are insinuating that CSDS surveys have my interests and my sort of interest, I would just remind you again, because I happen to be speaking to a senior journalist. In 2013, Barkha, when Aam Aadmi Party was contesting its very first election, when I was in Aam Aadmi Party, technically still a faculty member at CSDS, though on leave, and I was saying Aam Aadmi Party will get anything around 32 seats or 36 seats. This is the very first election of 2013. At that point, you would recall CSDS had a survey and CSDS said no more than 4 to 6. If CSDS had to serve my politics, that was the moment when I badly needed them to serve my politics. But they were completely poles apart, and the whole world laughed and mocked at it and asked me question. Your CSDS says that you will get only 4 to 6 seats. The only point, I'm not saying who was right or who was wrong. I'm only saying these people have no idea of what professional independence is like. I'm proud of the fact that in the moment I got into politics, that institution completely dissociated itself from anything to do with me. And even today, Barkha, when I get the CSDS figures, I wait for those figures to come up on the web. And then I use those figures just like anyone sitting in the US does, any scholar sitting in the world cites that data just like I do. So that bit should be clear. Unfortunately, these people have no idea, because they don't understand autonomy, because these people in their world, there is no difference between BJP, Election Commission, and Government of India. This is exactly what we are witnessing in this case. So therefore, it's very hard for them to understand the difference between someone who was in an institution 13 years ago and the academic practice of that institution today. But that apart, what is happening in Mr. Sanjay Kumar's case? The very simple thing we should remember, and this is one of those cases that shows the bankruptcy of our media as well. Please remember that the tweet in question is not about any survey or any forecast. The tweet in context has nothing to do with any survey at all. The survey that CSDS is famous for, CSDS Lokniti team. It has nothing to do with that. Number 3, it is not even the outcome of a study that CSDS has done, because, apart from making election forecasts, CSDS also does all kinds of other studies, and they release the findings on social media as well. This is not one of those things. So it's actually not an outcome of any study that CSDS has carried out. Apart from all this, in their individual capacity, CSDS professors, like people in any other institution, also put out facts and things. Mr. Sanjay Kumar put out those facts in 3 tweets. And as you would now rightly recall, and I want every viewer, every reader to please notice what I'm going to say. Please remember, Rahul Gandhi's press conference is on the 7th. Sanjay Kumar's tweet is on the 17th. So the idea that Rahul Gandhi was being fed by CSDS is ridiculous. Even more ridiculous is the situation because 2 of his tweets actually were contradicting what Rahul Gandhi said. If Sanjay Kumar's tweets were correct, that would have actually proven that Rahul Gandhi was wrong. Where is the question of any alignment? Rahul Gandhi was saying that in every seat, votes have been inflated. Sanjay Kumar, 2 of his tweets said that no, there's been extraordinary deflation. It turned out to be factually incorrect. But just look at the insinuation. Look at what they are saying. That, what would have actually, and that's why some Congress people are saying this is a conspiracy against Congress and things of that kind. I think we should simply think that this is just one of those very small errors that you made. I must have made many of those errors. Fortunately, there were no trolls in those days. And the moment you realize it, you withdraw and quietly tender a public apology, which is what a good researcher must always do, instead of shying away, instead of playing games like Mr. CEC was playing. It's a straightforward thing.
Can I ask a technical question? You say that it's a small error, and I think what Sanjay Kumar has explained is that perhaps in computing, his data team made a mistake and he drew the wrong conclusion from it. But a lot of people who may not be in politics may still say that an experienced psephologist would look at such a big variation, either in addition or deletion. Let's not for a moment get, he said 2 assembly constituencies showed a massive increase, almost, nearing 50%, 43 and 47%. And a similar 2 assembly constituencies showed a massive deletion, right? I am just wondering whether, as a trained psephologist, and you've been one before you were in active politics, would that not seem very odd at first glance? I'm only trying to technically understand this.
Of course, it should look odd. Of course, if I were to meet Sanjay, say, यार थोड़ा देख लिया करो, एक बार double check कर लो, कई बार बच्चे mistake कर देते हैं.
Yeah.
this is the first thing you get a red alert. Nahi yaar, yes, intuitively, if years of training tells you
Yes.
something is odd about this data, ek baar jao double check karo. I don't know under what
Yes.
pressure he may have done it, but what I'm saying is that if you're saying it's a mistake, yes, it's a mistake. If you're saying it's a serious mistake, yes, putting it out in the public domain is something which is not a very good idea. But if you're saying there's a design behind it, you are joking. What is the design in saying that in two constituencies, votes had declined considerably? Because it flies in the face of what Rahul Gandhi is saying. Unless there's a design to half support Mr. Amit Malviya, half support Gandhi, I think that kind of a devious design, unless you can imagine things of that kind, there's no design to it. And number three, it has nothing to do with the core work of CSDS at all. It is not any of the findings of CSDS surveys, not a finding of any of its other quantitative reports. It's detached from all that. What is the real issue, Barkha, is not this error at all. This error is a pretext for something else. And you know it, and I know it, and now the ICSSR has made it public. The real problem, the real thing is that Mr. CEC is angry. Mr. CEC is angry with CSDS. And someone must have picked up the phone to say, इनको कैसे चुप करवाना है, क्यों बोल रहे हैं? And why are they angry? They are angry because 4 days ago in the Hindu, the CSDS had carried out a survey. These are the kind of things CSDS is famous for. And no one is asking any questions about that. And that is the real problem. Because CSDS carried out a survey of an SIR-like situation in 5 other states. They go around and ask people, do you have the following documents? And they discover that large number of people do not have documents. And in the second part of the report, they try and analyze who are the people who don't have these documents. And they turn out to be poor, they turn out to be uneducated, turn out to be more women. And then the report draws a conclusion that SIR, like that insistence on these kinds of documents may lead to disenfranchisement. This is what Mr. CEC is very angry with. And the other thing that he's particularly angry with is that in that report, published in the Hindu in 2 parts in data point, the CSDS also asked people how much trust you have in Election Commission. Now, this is not a new question. CSDS has been asking this question since 1967. Identical wording, exactly in the same wording, they asked this question to people. So they asked the same question in these 5 states. And it is not CSDS's fault that Election Commission's rating turned out to be very, very poor. Not in one state where I expected it to be poor, but in other states it turned out to be not just poor, it turns out to be worse than the rating the Election Commission has enjoyed ever. So what do you do if someone is reporting in a newspaper that your reputation is going down? Well, a sensible person would say, all right, let me look within, let me see why is it that people are losing trust in an institution like Election Commission. But someone else would say, shoot the messenger. This is exactly what is happening. Then the question is, since when has the Election Commission had the powers to shoot the messenger? Election Commission by itself does not. There is no model code of conduct in practice. There is no law. Election Commission has no power. But only if Election Commission is Election Commission. If Election Commission is fused with the government of India, which is fused with the BJP, then the 3 of them have ultimate power. Election Commission is angry, Amit Malviya tweets, Government of India acts, ICSSR issues a notice, because there is no difference between all these bodies. This is what is the real issue. The issue is not those 2 tweets. The issue is silencing an academic institution. Barkha, you very well know what happened to CPR. One of the top rung policy institutions in this country has practically been shut down by this government. And I fear CSDS is on the firing line. That is the real issue. Let's not be confused by these silly alibis and these utterly stupid notions of reading future back into past.
Okay, let me end by asking you. I think you've spoken very passionately about what happened and is happening with Sanjay Kumar. An alternative way forward to address the mistakes in the roles. I think what I'm hearing you say, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you would support the SIR if it were not putting the onus on the voters to prove citizenship, A, and to provide documentation on which there is a sharp class divide.
Barkha, I don't support SIR. SIR is a
No,
new name
no,
invented
no,
by
no.
this election
Okay.
commission.
Let me reframe my
Yeah.
question. That you acknowledge that there is a need to revise the rules. Let me reframe my question. You acknowledge and agree that there is a need to revise the rules, but you have already listed your problem with the SIR. So, what is the alternative model to revise the rules?
Exactly. Yeah, Barkha, just to repeat what I was saying, the word SIR does not exist in Indian law. Indian law has an earlier word called intensive revision, which is a perfectly legitimate thing, which is required. Why should I have to acknowledge that there is a problem with Indian electoral rolls? I mean, I did not make it. I've been saying from the House rooftop for the last 30 years that there is a problem with voters' list. There is a problem which is structural. And now there are serious allegations of problems which are of manipulation and mass manipulation of electoral rolls. So, yes, what should the Election Commission do? Number one, instantly order an inquiry into what Mr. Rahul Gandhi has said, what Mr. Rag Thakur has said, what any XYZ might say with some evidence, prima facie evidence. And please get a retired judge, someone whose name inspires confidence to clean to clean yourself of the charges. If the judge finally finds there is something wrong with voters list, election commission won't be it won't be death for election commission. There are problems. You face it. That's one. Number two, yes, do systematic. Every 5 years, you should do an intensive revision, which is not just make corrections sitting at home. Do house to house verification. It's a very important idea. It's a good idea. It used to be done, should be revived. Number three, when you do intensive revision, please do not focus only on deletions. Please do as much focus on additions as you do on deletions. This is elementary, but Barkha, I have to say it because this SIR has resulted in 65 lakh deletions and zero addition. Would you believe me? Not one single name was added between 25th of June and 25th of July. So please focus on additions. And number four, please institute a sample check. India has a very proud tradition of statistical systems. Our statistical systems are some of the best in the world. Why can't we learn from what our statistical systems? For example, we have a register of birth and death through which this information is collected by Registrar General. But the Registrar General asks another agency to carry out a sample check to tell me what is the percentage of error in my own data. That's a good statistical system. So don't go outside, don't learn from Yogendra Yadav, learn from the existing statistical system. Please request NSSO, National Sample Survey of India, organization, one of the best organizations in the country. Please ask them to carry out the moment you have completed your intensive revision. Ask NSSO to carry out a 0.1% sample, not even 1% sample. 0.1% would be a good enough sample. Ask them to carry out a sample check, report back so that you can learn from mistakes, so that you don't have to wait for a Rahul Gandhi to tell you something is fraudulent about your voters list, so that you can learn. And that is the way forward. If the Election Commission is seriously interested in recovering trust, and the point where we started this interview, Barkha, it's a critical moment. We have seen neighboring countries. We have seen how election institutions lost trust. We have seen how elections became meaningless. We have not reached there yet. But the way this election commission is behaving, and sadly the previous one was no better, in the last 3-4 years, ever since Mr. Ashok Lavasa was given a lesson by Modi government, ever since then, all the election commissioners have taken a line, which is sorry. This is taking this country in the same direction. I'm warning, I'm alerting, I'm seriously praying that we do not go in that direction. While everyone has responsibility for that, you and I also have a bit of responsibility. The primary responsibility lies with the Election Commission of India to not only be fair, but also to be seen to be fair. Please don't ever do something as silly as the press conference that you did this Sunday.
All right, sharp words there. We will have to see in the days to come how two institutions react, the Election Commission itself and the Supreme Court. We leave it there. Professor Yogendra Yadav, thank you so much Yogendra ji is one of the petitioners in the Supreme Court against the SIR exercise taking place in Bihar. Thank you, Yogendra Yadav. Namaskar, and talk to you soon. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.